Hey folks, Roland Martin here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. You know, I get a lot of requests from beginners that want to know how to buy tackle and just what to get, what kind of spinning tackle, particularly spinning tackle, what to get. Well, I'm just going to give you some direction on that. I'm in Bass Pro Shop and I'm going to show you a lot of different spinning rods and reels, and maybe you can get an idea of what to get for Christmas or what to get for your birthday, or what the wives can get their husbands, or just any number of things. But let's start off for the beginner. Someone that hasn't fished a whole lot, what do you need? Okay, the first consideration. I'm a bass fisherman. I'm going to be talking mainly about bass fishing in these lakes and rivers here in Florida. Okay, and I'll talk about some saltwater stuff, and I'll talk about some maybe northern stuff as well. But let's just start off here in Florida. I'm going to say the first consideration as a beginning fisherman: are you fishing open water lakes and ponds and canals, or are you fishing lakes that have a lot of brush and a lot of lily pads and a lot of heavy cover and weeds? So, okay, let's just take a spinning rod. Okay, I have some of mine right here. Okay, here is now I'm a professional fisherman, and I'm going to have an expensive rod and reel, and I'm going to show you some much more economic rods. Hey son, how you doing?
Hi.
Hey, it's almost Christmas. Santa Claus is coming. That's good. Well, anyway, what this is my favorite really, really good rod and reel. And it has, this is not something I recommend for the beginner. This rod here cost $149, and the reel's about $100. So it's a $250 rod and reel. I'm going to show you something. I'm a professional fisherman. I need the best equipment I can get. So I have it right here in this favorite rod and reel combination. But I'm going to show you something that I consider. Let's start talking about, can you afford $100? Okay, that's a big consideration. For $100, you can get a heck of a good spinning rod and reel. Let's just take a look here. Okay, here's a whole bunch of them up here. Let's just look at these spinning reels. Come on down here, and we'll just talk about spinning reels. Okay, look at these prices. Here's a $17 reel. Stay away from the really, really cheap ones. So that's a Bass Pro Shop reel, and it's the entry level. The problem with a reel that's only $17.99, it probably has plastic gears. It's not going to last very long. It'll last a little while, yeah, and it's cheap, but that's not the rod and reel combination that I was talking about. What I'm talking about is something more of the medium price range. Now here's a reel, a really nice reel. It's a Bass Pro Shop reel, and there's some other Zebco reels that are Quantums, and here's a Quantum for $39. Okay, here's Daiwas, Flugers. Here's a Fluger rod and reel for $49. That's the price range that you need. And notice the size of the reel. That's the other consideration. If you're going to be fishing here in Florida, you want not a reel quite that small, but more of a reel that size. These are the 2500 to 3000 series reels that are what I call freshwater size, a medium size freshwater. Not the smallest freshwater, it's not an ultralight, but this is a perfect reel for catching bass here in Florida, for example. And you can put some braid on there and catch them in the lily pads. Or you can use monofilament and just light a line and fish the open water canals as well. But that size reel right there is really just kind of what you need. This is a 30 size reel. The 10s are real small. The 20s are smaller than this. The 30s are this size here. The 40s get into almost saltwater. The 50s are saltwater. The 60s are saltwater. So a 30 is about where you need to be. So that's the first consideration, a size 30 reel. And for about 50 bucks. Okay, now starting at the really high end, look, here's $219 rods. It's a heck of a nice rod, but that's not what I'm talking about. Let's find a much more economical rod. Let's go down a little bit farther. Here's $139 rods. We're getting down somewhat in price. There's a good St. Croix. It's a good brand, but again, I don't recommend a rod that good for a beginner fisherman. Let's get you a really good stout rod. Let's stay around the $100 range. We found a $50 reel. Okay, let's look for, say, a $50 rod. Okay, $149 rod, $179 rods. Okay, here we go. Hey, how you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Here's some $99 rods, but again, I think that's still out of our budget. Let's go a little bit, let's get a little bit more economical. Okay, let's come down here. Now, we're in the Gold Cup series. Now we're here. This is $49.99. Okay, now we're talking about a 7-foot, 10 to 17 pound line. That is a perfect rod. 7 foot is what I recommend if you're going to fish freshwater here in Florida. A size 30 reel I talked about, a 7-foot rod, and now we're talking not only bass. You can catch crappie on this thing. You can go to saltwater and even catch redfish and trout and snook, and so it's an all-around rod. You could take this north, and this would be a decent walleye rod. You could catch pike on it. There's just a lot of things you could do with a good rod. Now this is a high quality rod. I consider it a really good rod. So now we have a rod and reel combination for about $100, okay? Now, let's go back here, and there's actually some combinations. Okay, now here's another option. Now I showed you a $50 reel that was pretty good, and I showed you a $50 rod that was really a great rod. So we had a nice little $100 deal. They also have combos. Now here's a combo that I really like. This is the 6.5, 7 foot, okay. And what this is, that's a 7 foot. That's pretty much the same thing. It's a Fenwick, high quality, pretty high quality rod. It's a $100 rod and reel. That's that size 30 reel again, or a 2500 size reel. And that's a big enough rod and reel to handle just about anything. But they have another size as well. So let's look over here on this, in this rack, and they have the slightly larger $100 combo, slightly larger reel. That just, and maybe, you know, that might be an option. Rather than get that smaller reel, maybe this slightly bigger one. That's just a little bit bigger reel. $100 combo. Okay, that's one option. That's really a cool option. Okay, let's look at these. Here's some I got out of the stock. Now Lew's is a good rod and reel. And Lew's is, this is a 7-foot rod and a size 30 reel. It's really what you want, $100 combo. This is a combination that's selling now for $100, a Lew's rod and reel. Okay, now let's look at a little bit more expensive combination right here. This is a little bit bigger reel. This is a size 30 reel. Size 30 reel, Bass Pro Shop reel is a really good one, and a really good rod. That's a really a nice rod. That's the Johnny Morris rod. But look, it has the Fuji guides. That makes it a little bit more expensive. This combination is $129. A little bit more of a budget. But anyway, you get an idea. The fact that you can come down here and shop for about $100 and get yourself a good 7-foot rod, a good size 30 reel, and then now what are we going to put on it? Well, let's talk about braid, let's talk about monofilament. Well, the monofilament's pretty inexpensive. And if you look at a rod, let's just look at one real quick. What all rods do, as a beginner fisherman, I'd want to know this. I look at the rod, these are prescription glasses, and on the rod it's going to tell you what the recommended line weight is. It says right here, 7-foot rod. It's a medium action. The lure weight, they're saying, is good to cast is from an 1/8 ounce to a 1/2 ounce. So that's good to keep in mind. And the line weight, here it says right on the rod, right there, it says from 4 to 12 pound test. Power medium action, okay, medium fast action. So everything you really need to know is on the rod. You read the rod. Also, when you buy the reel, in the box of the reel, it tells you what the line capacity is. And if you look at your reel spool, again, looking with my prescription glasses, on almost all spools, it will tell you, yeah, right here. It says right here, 8-pound line, it holds 220 yards of 8-pound monofilament. A 10-pound monofilament, it holds 165 yards. Now you can buy monofilament pretty cheap. You can fill this reel up with all the monofilament that you need for just really $2 or $3. Okay, that's one big consideration. The other consideration is if you're going to fish heavy cover and brush, which like Lake Okeechobee, some of the canal systems down at A1 is another place at the new headwaters lake. It's all full of reeds and hyacinths. You might want to go to braid. Now, braid's an expense in itself, and you have a $100 rod and reel, you're going to have to spend about $20 to get yourself some braided line. Braided line costs more money, but it's the answer for catching big fish out of heavy cover. So you can go the monofilament route for just a couple dollars and get by in kind of open water, or you can go to that braided line, like the 30-pound braid, for example, which has the diameter of the 8 and 10-pound monofilament, and you can fill this reel up and you can have a reel that actually casts better. The braid has more sensitivity and it has that strength. Okay, let me just show you my rod and reel again, and then you'll understand what I'm dealing with. On my rod and reel, this is my more expensive rod and reel. This is a favorite. I have 20-pound braid on this one. And 20-pound braid is really, really, really a pretty good braided line. And so it's plenty heavy, and I can put a leader on there if I care to. I can put but see how thin that is? The 20-pound braid has a diameter of 6-pound monofilament. Really, really thin and light. But it has the sensitivity that you need, and it has the power. And the other thing about braid, it casts hard. 20-pound braid will outcast, say, that 10-pound monofilament. So it casts a lot farther, and it's just a lot more sensitive. So if you can afford the braid, I would recommend the braid. Again, a 7-foot rod, a size 30 reel, monofilament or braid. Spend about $100. That's what my recommendation is for a beginner fisherman that wants a good rod and reel. Okay, folks, I really appreciate you watching the YouTubes that I do, and it's a real pleasure doing them. Please subscribe and hit that likes button while you're at it. We'll see you again soon.